Hi, beautiful Donna McGeorge. Am so excited to dive into this conversation, and we nearly just riffed on all of the things before we got before we got to 10:30 and clicked live and record. So I'm glad we've saved most
Save
of
the good
that.
bits. Yeah.
Yeah, we've saved the good bits. This Leadership at the Edge experiment for me this year is all about I get to have beautiful conversations that I find really interesting with amazing humans, and there are other amazing humans that I would love to dive into conversation with. And rather than being kind of selfish and just kind of doing that myself, I think there are a lot of people who are really curious about how people are thinking and how work is shifting and evolving. I don't think anyone would disagree. Please disagree with me if you
No,
want to.
everything's changing.
I
Everything's
don't
different.
think.
Every time you turn around, there's something new. And if we just talked about AI for 5 seconds, there's a whole bunch of newness in that. It's just the world is ever changing, my friend.
Is
Ever changing.
wild. And there's so much possibility in that. And also, I'll never forget the moment that somebody articulated change equals loss. I think it was Andrea Clark. Change equals loss, right? So whenever anything is shifting or changing, we're losing something, which brings on so much fear, uncertainty, scarcity, discomfort.
Tell me about it. People don't like a feeling of loss. And it's almost like it immediately sharpens up their scarcity stuff. And so suddenly then they hoard or collect or whatever. And it can be humans, people's emotions, whatever. They just start to hold on to things, which makes it even harder, I reckon.
So much harder. And at this particular point in the world and in the evolution of work and just, I guess, our global culture and human species in general, I think there is so much shifting. All of these global megatrends. I was at a conference yesterday and they were talking about polycrises. So this sense that we're not just facing one crisis or one big trend like AI, there are multiple overlapping, merging, happening all at once. So of course, that's going to impact our lives, it's going to impact our work, it's going to impact the strategies that do or don't work in organizations, it's going to impact the way leaders show up. And again, opportunity in that, but our humanness kind of puts the brakes on in many ways. And when I was reading your new book, Red Brick Thinking,
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
but also amazing,
Thank you.
I think you've articulated a lot of that really clearly and simply, even just at this really basic level, that we overvalue what we already have. And again, this was reiterated at a leadership conference I was at yesterday, right? We overvalue what we already have versus what possibility there might be. And if we come from that perspective, then of course we're going to end up with layers and layers of fossilized stuff that maybe does or doesn't serve us.
I didn't realise that was that clever that I wrote a book that was kind of about polycrises. I didn't even know that was a thing. Go figure. Go me.
Go
Writing something
you.
that clever. Do you know, that angle of that we value what we already have, I think is really interesting. And of course, it's human instinct to sameness equals safety. And so if I've already got it, it's the same as what I've had. And that feels safer than anything new or different.
Yeah.
And it also feels safer because it becomes like a security blanket or a big, big roll of bubble wrap.
Yes.
That means I hold on to it and I wrap myself around it to feel safe, and I'm not going to let it go either. And so this book, the Red Brick Thinking book, was around let's have a really good look at what we can let go of, because for many of us who are leaders like if you're a leader in an organization, it's one thing to say we have polycrises, or let's just say poly projects. We've just got so much going on all the time.
These strategies.
Yeah, for me to say, yeah, you got to let some of it go. Inappropriate, it just feels like
Almost
I'm
subversive.
irresponsible or something, right? I can't just stop doing things. And it's like, yeah, but something has to give. Something has to give, right? And so this book I wanted to cover in this book not just the cancel a meeting thing, which is what most of us fall back on in organisations or stop a project, but also where in our personal life are we creating more, we'll call it baggage for the moment, where we're carrying around more stuff, more weight, more heaviness. So I wanted it to be a more holistic kind of approach as well, to give people options. Really?
We love a good option.
We do, don't we? We love choice.
We do. And there's a time where I think we have too much choice, right? I think the science
that's a topic of a whole other conversation, don't you reckon? Like, I mean, how many different sorts of toothpaste does one person need, right? It's like, just need to brush my teeth.
Not as many as we have, right? I think it used to be 7 plus or minus 2 was a sweet spot of choices. Mm-hmm. But then I heard some information yesterday, and this was around influence and data points for influence. And I don't know about you, but I know I gravitate towards more is more. If I give you more data and more evidence, my argument is more persuasive. And certainly a lot of the executives and leaders that I work with are in the same boat, right? How do I add more to this business case so that it's going to get across the line? But there was some really clear data shared that said 3 pieces of data or evidence is the sweet spot. And actually, it's not that you get diminishing returns from extra pieces of information, which is what I probably would have expected. It's that you lose credibility and influence by the 4th, 5th, and 6th pieces of information, and you increase skepticism because you're adding in more, which blew my little mind a little bit.
Well, first of all, you don't have a little mind, but I get that, because I was actually sitting here thinking the other thing organisations are very good at is I'm not comfortable making a decision right now, and I cover my backside, so I'm just going to send you off on a more evidence journey. Just go find more things so we can put off having to make the call on this. So I think there's twice this. It's interesting though, because what you're talking about here is the crux of the book. This idea that more somehow equals better. Yes. And that our instinct when we're presented with a problem is to add more. So the problem is I'm worried that I'm not going to get this business case across the line. So I'll add more data, add more evidence, add one more case study, add one more meeting, add another committee, add more slides to the deck or whatever it is I need. We just keep adding. And rarely do people ask the question, is there something we could take away that would make this clearer? Is there something we could take away that would make this more obvious or easier for people to grasp or understand? Yes. And that's the crux of that's what got me onto this, actually. It's what got me onto the whole thing.
Okay. Which is that I was thinking about the evolution of your books and your writing from, talking about, meetings and maximizing time, and then into AI. And then we've got this rubric thinking, right? Or ChatGPT AI. And at a kind of quick glance, that really looks like it's following the trajectory of how we in the world have been thinking about how we can actually be more productive or create more value. And what we actually want, I think, out of more value is a more fulfilling, rewarding, joyful life.
Well, that's the end game, you'd like to think. Why do we go to work and work like Trojans and be maniacs and ridiculous hours and da-da-da? Why would we do that? So that at some point I have a good life. Yes. Or I'm providing a good life for my kids or family or whatever I'm doing, right? That's the end game. I reckon for many, and I don't know how many you meet around this, I think people forget that and lose sight of it. I think sometimes what is the ends goal or so I talk about means goals and ends goals. So a job is a means goal, right? It's a means to an end. And sometimes we make the job the end goal, right? And suddenly we're drowning in stuff. So I digressed a bit there. Sorry.
No, I 100% agree. And humans are very curious creatures, right? But ultimately what you're talking about is this fallacy of I'll be happy when.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole chapter in this book called The Red Brick of Someday. Yes. And how someday I'll be happy. Someday when this is done. Someday, even down to, someday I'll wear my best outfit, my best shoes, carry my best handbag, use the best crockery. We're not so bad at that. The boomers were really bad at that. Like they'd have 3 different dinner sets and you could always tell where you were in the pecking order of friendship by which dinner set you got when you went over for a feed. or the favorite linen, or the favorite something or other, right? The best, the very best. We don't do that so much now, but gee, we put off a lot in the interests of being responsible about, say, retirement and stuff like that. We think, I'm going to, and we were told, I can't remember the name of the book, that was like, we need to put off instant gratification. So I'm not necessarily saying everyone should just go nuts right now, but we do tend to have, and we've been taught for a long time, that we put off happiness now to a later happiness down the track, and it'll be a bigger, better happiness. And all of us, I don't mean to be, doom and gloom around this, but we've all heard stories about the people who retire at, say, 65 or 70 and get ready to jump in the caravan because they've been putting off everything forever and then have a heart attack in the driveway. I actually know someone that happened to.
Oh my gosh.
Dropped dead in the driveway on the way out to their big, take a caravan around the place because they'd worked so, grueling. I'll say gruelingly. Yeah.
Yes. And we have admired that hustle, that work ethic. Certainly I grew up with role models of you work hard.
Yeah. And work hard and long. And it's actually family has to sacrifice so that parents can, you never got to say, I need you for something. It's like, no, mum needs to work. Hey, dad, can you do something? No, dad's working. Right. And so we certainly the X generation learned that kids stayed out of the way of work. Right. Work was really, really important. This is why I love, I reckon I'll be out of work in 20 years because and I probably will be anyway, retired. The younger generations, millennials and Zs, are much better at creating the boundaries around, I work these hours. And, the conversations around, but, you need to show your commitment by working longer hours. I don't understand the question. And I love that, right? So work ethic is changing. It doesn't mean that it's better or worse or whatever. It's just changing. And I'm here for it.
Yes, I think we have a lot to learn from people who trigger us. Right.
Yes,
and I see that a lot. Yeah. And more experienced leaders, it's like, how dare they? And like, it's like, well, maybe there's a side to that argument. Are we delivering what we need to be delivering? But also, what is it about me and my stories and my beliefs about what success looks like and what it takes to get there?
Yep.
That is challenged by this behavior. Because if you can, at an early career, create these boundaries and get paid more than I was and get promoted faster than I was and become a bajillionaire, then does that mean that I have done something wrong? And like, that's really confronting, right? Versus looking at it and going, okay, what is actually at the core of this tension and what can I learn from that?
Yeah.
Because I still get to choose tomorrow whether I, work all the extra hours or put some clearer boundaries in place.
But you just hit the nail on the head, right? It's the stories we tell ourselves. So a large part of this book is a little bit about the stories we tell ourselves about obligations and guilt and perfectionism, and woven in with agency, right? And so a lot of the excuses we use, well, I can't do that in my job because, I have no agency over the hours that I work or the meetings that I go to or the humans that I interact with or the projects that I take on because it's the nature of the work. I'm like, oh, gee, is it? Gee, is that a story we tell ourselves? And maybe I needed to write this. It's a little bit autobiographical, this book, in some aspects. But but I'm really paying attention to me at this point in my life to the stories that I tell myself about what work has to look like, what life has to look like, and it's all about the stories we tell ourselves about that. And when I reckon that's such a leadership flex. Do you hear me? I'm being all hip now, using the word flex. I reckon it's a leadership flex when you can recognize that you're telling yourself, you're telling yourself a story, and B, so work ethic's a great one. I'm telling myself a story about what I think a work ethic is, and then B, adjust to that. Well, it's a flex about a flex. See what I did there?
Yes. I love it. Because ultimately what I hear you saying is if we are going to continue to grow and evolve and the pace of and the nature of the external world and the context that we are operating in is that it is pushing us to grow and evolve more often. It's kind of like we're balancing on a Bosu ball. Have you ever done that at a gym? Like, is that half ball?
Do I look like someone who goes to a gym? Let's not talk about that.
Look, I haven't done it for a little while, but let's just imagine like you're trying to balance on like a little seesaw situation, right? And that's not standing still. That's a really active process where we're constantly recalibrating and adjusting our physical self so that we can stay centered and we can stay present and we can not fall over. And actually, the worst thing we can do in that situation is go really rigid. And I think for a lot of us, that's what we're doing in our relationship with work. We've decided this is the one way that it's going to go. This is the career that I picked. This is the corporate ladder that I wanted. I said I wanted to be CEO. I changed from business accounting halfway through a degree, much to the dismay of various people, because you don't do that, into psychology, and then was a registered psychologist for 25 years working in business psychology. And then last year, that was the mountain I was climbing, right? That was the ladder I was going up. And it's not easy to become a registered psychologist. They are amazing humans. I know some really awesome ones. But the rigidity would be staying there and going, well, this is me done now.
Well, the rigidity that you're talking about, there's two things. There's one, so first of all, I'm just trying to think. I think in my book I talk about, who's our little tennis player? That's just me having a mental moment now. The girl that won the Australian Open and then quit, right? Oh, everyone who's listening to this is screaming at us.
What is her name?
Anywho,
I heard her talked about yesterday.
Yeah, so I talk about her in my presentations all the time. The fact that I just can't get her name out of my head right now is really interesting.
Fine.
Anywho, it'll come. Interrupt me when you remember, or I'll remember. She started out as a tennis player, wasn't loving it, played cricket for a while, was wildly successful at that, then gave up cricket and then started playing tennis again. And then right at the height of her career, she goes, yeah, I've had enough. Or in true Australian style, she just goes, yeah, nah, I've had enough.
Nah.
The courage to pull the plug halfway through your accounting career, or at the peak of your psychology career, or the peak of your tennis career, it's insane to do that. But it still is a question of two things. One is the story you tell yourself, and two, the next dangerous thing we do as humans, I think, is what we attach our identity to. 100%. And so, right, and you would get this from a psychology perspective, that when we attach our identity to being a champion tennis player, then, and unless I'm being a champion tennis player, I'm not a good person. Well, she was so good at just letting that go, right? And because we've watched other tennis players who keep playing and playing and playing and playing, and then they don't know who they are, and they have a little meltdown or whatever, right? Yeah. And I've watched it with enough people just in business who are attached to their title or the company or the work that they do. And so when that goes away for some reason, now they've got nothing. And so I think they go hand in hand, like agency and story, and there's probably a good model in this, and identity. Yes. And someone's probably already done a PhD in psychology on it already, that just says, when you're more whole internally, like you can just make better choices and better decisions and better life, just quietly, better life.
Yes.
So look at us being all perfect. Like, it's just perfect, people. Just go and do that.
Perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. Can we just erase that word?
There's a chapter on that too. Red brick of perfection. Remove that red brick.
But I think once you realize, I love that you use the word agency, right? Because the number of times I will stand in a room with a group of leaders, or I'll be in a coaching session, and I'll say, well, what if you didn't do that? Or
what happened if you didn't? Yeah,
exactly. And they're like, oh no, I have to. I couldn't possibly. Like, it's just not an option.
Says who?
And I get it, because I've been in that place, and I'm sure you have too, where it really viscerally does not feel like an option. It doesn't feel like a safe option. And we're so blinkered and in that threat response that it does not compute. And once we realize that we genuinely have the agency, we have the choice, each and every moment, then there's so much power in that we often give away to the people around us, right? And that's where we get to, have you read The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying? Or are you familiar?
Yeah, I think I referenced it in one of my other books. Yeah. Bronnie Ware's stuff is amazing.
Yeah. So it's, ultimately, when we get to the end, we want to look back and go, I was myself and I enjoyed my life and I invested that time and energy and presence and attention with people who were valuable to me. And yes, work is fulfilling and connecting and challenging, and it's a beautiful fertile ground for us to grow and contribute and create legacy, but not at the cost of everything else.
No.
But we need to own that first.
Absolutely. And I started to think of something and now it's just forgotten. I've just forgotten it. So I'll just
It will come back to you. I want to ask you about because the book's called Red Brick Thinking, and I've heard the story of where the red brick situation came from.
What it was, sorry. I was going to give everyone, just in case you need it, permission granted from your Auntie Donna. Because I just sometimes think people are waiting for permission. I can't do that. Of course you can. Permission granted. Beg your pardon, as you were.
Yeah. If you want a permission slip, here it is.
Here it is. I'll give you one. We've just got one, permission slip.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry,
I also
Andrea.
love future pacing. Like, what is the worst thing that could happen? What is the biggest catastrophe that could happen? And okay, if that happened, what would you do? And then we realize that we can actually face it. That can be so
Not
powerful.
only that, the chances of the worst case scenario, I often get people to work backwards. Okay, so what's the second worst thing, third worst thing? And, people will say, if I do that, I'll get sacked. Really? Do you know how hard it is to get sacked in an organisation in Australia? It's really hard. It could take 12 months for you to get sacked. You'll find another job by then. So, what's the worst thing that can... Well, so you're not going to get sacked. So then what's the second worst thing that can happen? Oh, it's a career-limiting move. Really? In your organisation, speaking truth and showing up in a way that shows you care, that's going to get you sacked or a career-limiting move? I don't think so. So what now? What's the next worst thing that could happen, right? And often, I read a book recently which... I read it because I loved the title. You should never judge a book by its cover. It wasn't what I was expecting. It was called 10 Seconds of Courage. It's a good book. It's a good book if you want to read the story of an athlete who just had lots of setbacks and then ended up being, world champion. I was waiting for the kind of connection into organisation because I really like this idea of 10 seconds of courage in an organisation where you say, all I need is 10 seconds of courage to say this. And then once I'm on the other side of that, life will be okay. And so I just sometimes think that's the consequence, or that's the only thing you got to face is just have the courage to say the thing. Worst case scenario is someone goes, yeah, no, shut up, and they move on. They're not going to sack you. It's not a career.
And actually, we feel lighter.
You're not going to lose your job.
I'm not going to sack you. And look, let's be honest, if you do, again, we overvalue the things that we have.
Right.
Is that actually the worst thing that could possibly happen to you?
Right.
Maybe
someone sacks
that
you for
is
sticking up for yourself. You don't want to be there.
Yeah. Maybe
Crazy.
that's the crucible moment in your hero story and you rise like a phoenix from that point.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Maybe. Which reminds me of, have you heard of the tyranny of mediocrity?
No, but I love the sound of it. There's some great words just in that, right?
There is
Tyranny
there are
of
some great words.
mediocrity.
Right? Because as I was reading what you created in this book, that's part of what was sticking in my head, right? And I think we are really great at galvanizing to action when something is really obviously shit or broken or terrible, right? Like if it's a do or die situation, yes, I'm going to make a choice and I know exactly what I'm going to do. Most of us.
Yep.
And if something is amazing, great. Like I'm going to enjoy it. Fabulous. It's at that middle zone where we find it so hard to make a choice. It's like the relationship that's kind of okay, but I don't feel great every time I leave, I don't know, the meeting or the lunch. It's the job that, pays the bills and I'm kind of good at it, but I don't feel lit up and excited or acknowledged or recognized, or I'm not getting progression. But, it's not that bad. So again, I think it's linked to this idea that we overvalue what we already have. But if things are just meh,
I reckon it's when things
so hard to get into action.
You've nailed it. It's when things aren't urgent.
Yes.
And so it's this notion that we wait for crises. No wonder we have polycrises in our world. So we wait for crisis. So if I use it just as a simple metaphor, I wait until the bookcase is so full that it's falling apart before I think about culling my book collection or my wardrobe or my calendar, right? My calendar is absolutely booked and I'm sick because unwell, as in sick, because I'm taking on too much. And so I've hit a crisis and then I'll start to make some decisions. And it happens to so many people that they wait until it's a crisis situation before they move. My suggestion is, why wouldn't you create a life that's never, I mean, you're never not going to have crises. I think that would be unrealistic, but the everyday crises, do they really have to happen every day? Do you have to get home from work and fall in a heap on a couch every day, right? Couldn't you start adjusting? So it's interesting because I started writing the book, The One Day Refund, as a response to COVID and how, you know, most of us, particularly Victorians, were in lockdown for so long. And so we were saving ourselves at least 2 hours a day commute for many people, about 2 hours a day, hour in each direction. And so that equated to, say, 10 hours a week. And I was like, that's a whole day, right? What did you do with that time? And most people just subsumed it into their work and just did even more email and took on even more projects and started work even earlier and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, but what else? If I was to say to you, I'm going to give you a whole day back in your week, what would you do with it? No one says I'll do email and all those things. They'd say I'd go to the gym or go for walks or go for a swim or surf or spend time with my kids or whatever. But hardly anyone did that. So that book was in response to that. Now I can't remember why I started telling you. That's something. I do that all the time. I started telling you something. Who knows?
Humans doing the human thing, right?
Right? That's it. Because we don't wait for crisis. So that talked about the 15% rule. That's why I started going with it. And it's like we should be operating at about 15% capacity. 85% capacity, giving us a 15% buffer. And so we're not full all the time. You know?
Yes.
The things aren't full all the time.
And I think a lot of us, and look, again, I can relate to this. When I was early career consulting, I learned this in the 2000s. This was the way that we rolled, right? It's not that we ramp up to 100% and then we kind of come back and we have some capacity for those urgent situations or those emergencies or those great opportunities that drop. Is that we ramp up to 100 and then there is an emergency or an opportunity and we need to kind of galvanize to action. So we go into the red zone. It's like we're revving the engine at 110, 120%. And then that becomes the baseline expectation, and we're expected to just ramp even more next time we want to layer something in, versus kind of this ebb and flow and appreciating that everything in nature and certainly humans were designed to flux.
Do you know, just about everything in nature, in manufacturing, in just the car that you drive, just about everything else in the world, even the Starship Enterprise, it never operates at, warp speed, warp 9 the whole time. It generally drives at about warp 3 because it knows it'll blow its engines up. I know that's a fictional thing, but no one drives...
I'm impressed that you know the detail of this.
Oh, me too, to some extent. But no one drives their car flat out all the time. At some point, you have to have a car serviced, right? In fact, I read a recent stat that our car is used about 4% of the time. About 4% of your ownership time your car is used. The rest of the time it's parked somewhere. Right? How interesting is that, right? And I suppose unless you're a truckie driving to and from Sydney, but that's a whole other conversation. And so this notion that we have to be 100% on 100% of the time is really what I'm challenging here. How did we arrive at that? And I love your thinking, this notion that we somehow set the bar at 100%. And so now when we say, here's your performance review. So, hey, Andrea, how much are you going to give me this year? And you go, I'm going to give you 110%, boss. Going to give you 110%. Whereas I'd love you to say, you know what, boss, I'm going to pare it back. This year you're going to get 85% from me. And I'm going to aim to, no one's going to ever say that. Could you imagine that conversation? But we're going to aim for 85%, rather than trying to do this 100% on 100% of the time. It's not sustainable. I don't know where it started. I don't know. Maybe there's probably somewhere around the turn of the 20th century, around the industrialization, when people could work longer hours and needed more money, maybe. I don't know.
Right. And that would make sense to me. Industrial age, we come out of agriculture and all of a sudden human labor is a unit, like $1 per unit to create
a human resource.
Right? To create an output or an outcome. And if I put more human units in, I get more product units out, which is very engineering thinking. And engineers, very smart, capable people, right? We've built some amazing things, but humans don't operate that way. So part of what I see shifting is our understanding of the nature of not the problem we're trying to solve, but the system that we're operating within. It's not a production line system. It's not an engineering
system.
This
is the thing that bugs me the most, because engineers would get this. That there's a production line. We're making, I don't know, cars, TVs, whatever we're making. And at some point, we have to shut, because I know this because one of my clients used to do automotive manufacturing. At some point, we've got to shut down the plant and we do a whole bunch of maintenance.
Yes.
At some point, maybe in part of the process, a nut, a widget, something breaks in that. And we go, oh yeah, that's normal. It's wear and tear, right? So we fix it up. Why don't we give humans the same opportunity? Now, I suppose in Australia, we're better than most. We have our 4 weeks annual leave that we're meant to take.
Meant to.
We're meant to take, right? But how many people do you talk to in your line of work that take their vacation but take their laptop and phone with them, and they might be sitting by a pool in Bali, but they're on their phone and on their laptop the whole time doing their email, and I've just got to go do this call, and, you know, could you people playing volleyball in the pool, could you just keep it down a bit? Just keep it down a bit. I'm on a call right here, you know? It's like,
can you not have fun laughing too loud?
Right, please? Right. And so I don't know why we don't do this more.
Why? Those same people, I think, and I understand the mindset, and I can physically, like, my body feels a particular way when I think about that scenario, right? My nervous system responds in a particular way. So I get it. And then if we shift perspective a little bit and we look at the dynamics of what's happening in a slightly different way, we can appreciate that actually, you know what? The fact that I am always available and I am here dispensing solutions and I am responsive, etc., is teaching people how to relate to and interact with me.
Yeah, we're training them every day.
What to expect.
Yeah, this is how I roll. This is how you work with me. We've only been talking about work. We haven't even talked about, you know, if I'm a working parent, and so now I've done my day shift at work, and now I get home, and now I've got another bunch of people needing a piece of me. And so it gets to 11 o'clock at night and I fall into bed. Now I've got to be up at 6 a.m. the next morning to get it going again. And that's not enough sleep, right? I'm lucky if I go 11 to 6 getting sleep. That's about 7 hours, right? You're lucky if you get that. And so I wonder if there is a revolution ahead of us a bit. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see, do the millennials just follow on from the leadership lessons that they've seen, which is always on, always available, always, you know, and sacrifice, very sacrificial kind of model, sacrifice self for business. Or are we going to see a shift away from that? And I sometimes think, you know, businesses will say, but we won't make as many widgets, so we won't make as much money, so we won't have as many people to promote and da-da-da. And when I talk to millennials, they're like, that's okay, I don't want a promotion. Right?
Okay.
So let's be honest. I'm talking macroeconomics here, which I really know nothing about, just quietly. But I figured, you know, if you're not making as many widgets, maybe people don't want to buy as many widgets. I totally get that, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. There's the infinite pursuit of more.
That's it.
Like producing more, consuming more, working more, earning more bigger. Like I get the human psychology of why we do it, but it's like, it is not sustainable. And actually
enough.
It's
right?
enough. And there is so much power in defining what your enough is and defining your version of a satisfying, fulfilling, joyful life. Yes, financially, but also in terms of how we want to spend our time, etc. And when we do that, we get to make really smart choices that we feel so much more confident in owning about what I'm willing to trade for work.
Yeah. Yeah.
versus going, I just want more, I want more money so I can pay for the private school to teach my kids the things that I don't have time to teach them, and for
And then to
the
create a
after school and
desire
before
in
school.
them for more, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's relentless.
it
If
is
that's the
relentless.
model that you're operating under, the pursuit of more, you're never gonna. It's a bit like the pursuit of perfection. You never quite get there. Whereas can actually categorize, and you and I, neither of us are financial planners, so let's just
No.
put that caveat out there. But when you make the decision, so the reason I can talk about this is I'm approaching this era of my life. I'm approaching the season of my life where I might want to
Yes.
think about slowing down with work, and it's still around. So long as I'm clear about what is enough. And so I sometimes think we're constantly going for surplus, which is great, right? I'm reminded of Kari Webb, the golfer, when she was giving advice to one of the new, probably Minjee Lee or someone like that playing golf, one of the new young Australian champs. And Kari Webb's advice was always just go for par. And if you happen to get a birdie, that's great. Now, if no one's in, we just lost a whole bunch of listeners now because they're like, I hate golf. But anywho, and I really love that idea. Know what is enough, and that's enough. And if you happen to get a couple of birdies, that's okay. If you happen to get a bit more, that's great. But it takes a lot of pressure off yourself to know what is enough. And it's an interesting conversation to have with yourself, whether it's a financial one with a financial planner or just around time and energy and work. And I don't yet know what enough books are for me yet, because you mentioned that I'd written a few, but I've actually written 15 books, and the first 8 or so were shit, so I don't really talk about them much. But the last 7 or so, I really shouldn't say that, should I?
You can say what you like.
Because they're really good. A lot of people who've read them say, "Oh my God, no, I love those books." But the last lot have been considered what I would say best on the bestseller-ish kind of lists, And I don't yet know. I don't think I've written enough yet. I don't quite know what that number is yet.
You've got some more books in you.
I think I've got more books in me. Yeah,
I like it. I like it. So I feel like we've had a very conceptual conversation, which I love. And also, if I am in that state of overwhelmed, pursuing more, being swamped by all of the things, I can imagine in my mind I'm going, yeah, that's great for you, or yeah, okay, I get that, but what the hell do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as, or have you witnessed people do or done yourself, are like a couple of easy steps to take, or tactics to put into place to start to subtract strategically?
Yes.
If we think about a leadership work context.
Sure. So the first thing is, most leaders that I speak to, I don't know what your situation is, but just about everyone I talk to says that they have way too many meetings in their world. So the easiest lever to pull when you're trying to create space and capacity is just get rid of a few meetings. And don't wait for permission to do them. Just don't go to them, because so many organisations invite a cast of thousands, and then we use excuses like optics or whatever, and then we go, but then we just sit into our email the whole time anyway. So it's ridiculous. So the first thing I'd say, the easiest lever to pull is meetings, and then protecting time. So I do this exercise where I say, how much time can you protect in your diary? And people freak out. Oh, no, I'm too busy, blah, 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 all the, non-agency stuff. And so I show them how I run my diary. So I protect from 8 till 10 every morning, and I try to protect that as much as I can from meetings, and then I protect an hour in the afternoon, and then I usually give myself a 45-minute lunch break. And when I say that out loud, people are assuming that, well, what are you doing all day, right? And then I say, well, how many meetings do you average a week? And they say, let's be conservative. Let's just say, I don't know, 3 or 4 a day kind of thing. So I still stick them in, and I can stick them in my diary. And then I say, oh, but we have 1 day training. Okay, so block a day out for training. The point is, it's a bit a la Steve Covey. When you put that made it sound like I know him very well. I don't. The late
Put your
great
big rocks.
Stephen Covey, your big rocks. And the big rocks aren't the jobs. They're the space.
No.
The space to think, the space to breathe. That's what goes in first. And so I like to bookend how my day starts and ends. I don't like people to have control over how my day starts and ends. So if I want to start I choose how I start my day. I choose who I give that time away to. I'm very particular about that. So the first lever is meetings. The second lever is protecting time, so that you've got space in your diary to do the thing. If you're a leader in an organization, you're paid to think. You're not paid to do stuff and be mean. You're paid to think.
I would add to that, you're also paid to relate to people.
And then make decisions.
Yes.
Right? That's it.
Not have meetings with people necessarily, but relate to people.
Yes. And so if you're not having the space in your diary to have the great thinking time, to have the relationships that you need to make the right decisions, then what on earth are you doing?
You are going to a series of meetings discussing things that never get resolved, that get bunted into the future, and engaged in email threads that are going around and around with 20 people for a month and still not getting resolved. And
you're telling stories about to yourself about what's important, and you're prioritizing the non-important things, right? Yeah. Or you're lazy, right? I actually think sometimes busy is lazy. I'm just too busy for that. No, you're not. You're just lazy. You're not thinking correctly. You're not making the right choices. You're not being discerning enough about where you're spending your time. Stop being lazy. Stop being busy, and start being discerning. That's what leadership is about. Yeah.
I love that word, discerning. And let's just normalize lazy for a minute. Our brain is a energy efficient machine. So yes, of course, our default position in responding to the context and the overwhelm and the situation that we're in is lazy. It's not a character flaw. It's just the way our operating system works. So
it totally does. And it chooses the easy things to do. I can feel busy by just sitting working through my email, and my brain goes, awesome, I don't even need to think about that. Right?
I'm successful because I have,
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Love it.
Humans are so curious. I love that.
Aren't we? And we're very complex. And so the third thing I'll say, first thing is just go and look at your meetings and just get rid of a bunch. Say no. You'll be very surprised. People won't. I mean, let's face it. If I said to anyone listening in here today or watching us, hello, if I said, 3 meetings got cancelled this afternoon, how would you feel? It'd be woohoo, because now I have all this awesome time, right? Well, rather than be at the mercy of others deciding your free time, why don't you and let's face it, you cancel 3 meetings this afternoon, you can have a whole bunch of other people in the business going, woohoo. Now, I get that we're deferring potentially, but I'd love you to be better about that and shorten your meetings. Meetings is the thing. The second thing is blocking time, so you've got space to think, to relate and to make the right decisions. And the third thing I'll say is making some decisions today that is going to benefit your future self. And so these can be decisions about health. I try really hard not to have too many carbs and not too much sugar in my diet, and I'm off alcohol. It's much easier to say I don't drink any alcohol than to say, oh, I'm cutting back. Much easier to say, I think I heard a great person say once, it's much easier to be 100% committed than 99% committed.
Yeah.
Right? So 99 is hard. Yeah.
And it also means you're making a decision once that pays off.
Oh, right. Now I don't have to make 1,000 other decisions. Right?
Versus, I'm moderating my alcohol intake. Is this a moment where I'm going to enjoy some, or is this a moment where I'm going to abstain? We need to make the decision all of the time.
Just zero. Yeah.
So making decisions.
Making decisions that your future self will thank you for, or take the load off your future self.
Which is investments. Right? Investments.
They're weird investments.
I love all of those. Well, I was going to say they're intangible, but a lot of our investments are, right? I would add to that, build your coaching skills, and I'm picking on coaching skills, and I mean questioning skills in particular, so that each time somebody comes to you for an answer or they bring you a problem to solve, you punt it back to them, and you are building their capability to solve their own problems, which, you know what, is dealing with the root cause so that you don't get 100 questions a month. And you're defending your time. So we're recontracting how you can, use me as a resource and how we relate to each other. I'm building future capability, and I'm, to your point, making an investment that, yes, might take me 5 minutes more now, but it's going to save me 5 hours this quarter or this half. And with that extra time, I can rise to the right altitude and focus on the work that is the highest value for me in this organization versus everyone getting pulled down and trying to do all of the things.
That's exactly it. Exactly it.
I love that.
We are in alignment, my friend.
I am not surprised. Now, it is time to wrap up. What I would love to do before we close out, though, is can you show us your little bridge? Because I want to hear the bridge story, and then let's close out and unplug.
Okay, so when I was researching the book, The One Day Refund, I came across this research study that talked about something called addition bias, which we've been talking about the whole time, which is when we're stuck, we add. Let's add a new process, policy, procedure, meeting, committee, whatever, to solve the problem. And then that's when I first learned about, I think I named it strategic subtraction, but if someone else thinks that they named it that, I'm not going to get upset by it. But strategic subtraction is when we're presented with a problem, what would happen if we took something away? So I started using this little Lego bridge. And you can see it's crooked. One leg's, longer than the other. And I would say to people, how would you fix it? And 95% of people would pick up another Lego brick and they'd stick it on the bottom and they'd go, yeah, now it's even. Very rarely did people take away the red brick. And so the interesting thing about this is I was doing this live one day and I said, so what happens if we just, remove the red brick? And then I started saying it over. So you could red brick something. This is about red bricking. And then I went, oh, this is red brick thinking. You got to think red brick. That's the thing. So it was just a fluke. So it could have been green brick thinking, blue brick thinking, black brick thinking. It just happened to be that day I went red brick thinking. And that's usually what I refer to as the red brick revelation, where people go, oh, yes, you can solve the problem by removing. And then, of course, the big question is, so where are the red bricks in your world that are worth removing? That's the big question.
Love that. So good. Okay, so what are the red bricks that we could remove, whether it is projects, strategies, whether it is meetings or emails? Maybe there's a great unsubscribe revolution.
Right.
Maybe it is...
So you've just named a bunch of what I call structural red bricks. So there's structural red bricks, cultural red bricks, and emotional red bricks. You didn't even touch on those, right? Because we carry all this baggage. What story could we stop telling? That's a red brick. I'm just going to red brick that story, right? And now, or an obligation. So you can recognize them by the energy that you feel around them, whether it's work or emotional or cultural or whatever. So I've said yes to an obligation and now I'm feeling resentful. That's probably a red brick worth examining.
Yes. So emotions as data and how I feel about something is information, and you know what? Feelings are for feeling. And if I'm going to process the emotion, which makes me healthier and whatever, then I figure out what it's telling me and I do the thing that it's telling me. And maybe I renegotiate that thing that I said yes to, or maybe I don't say yes to it next time. So maybe we can leave with this question today. What one red brick can you remove today or this week?
That's it. I love it. Are you asking me, or are we asking our watchers today?
I think let's ask our beautiful audience and watchers, and I'm so curious what that might be. So find me on LinkedIn, drop into my inbox, let me know, or just drop it in the comment section below this live replay if you're watching it there. Donna, I'm sure you're really curious too. So
totally curious. What are we red bricking? Absolutely.
So good. Thank you for being here with me this morning. I've really enjoyed it. I appreciate you and your thinking. And if anyone has gotten curious about red bricking, here's the book.
Yeah.
Not a sales pitch, but dive on in if you're interested and you're curious. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, and you.